Hi, my name is Filipe Carrera, and I'm a coordinator of the postgraduate course or executive master in digital marketing at the Portuguese Institute of Marketing Management, that is called IPAM. And today I'm here with Mitchell Levy, and we will be talking about from Eureka to aha moment. And we will be talking about a new era for content creation. We are starting a little bit late because my computer did something very strange. I don't know what, but it did. So it was my computer fault to start late. But let's start with some presentations. So we have a very special guest from the other side of the world, Mitchell. Can you present yourself and talk about your project AHA Amplifier that is creating AHA moments?
There we go. Hi. Hey, it's great to be here. It's very interesting to me. I really do enjoy uh, creating aha moments, focusing and helping individuals become much more attuned to basically generate awareness. If you're an expert in your field, to be a thought leader, you need to be a recognized expert in your field. But you don't want to take years to do this. You don't want to take thousands of hours to do that. What if I could tell you you can actually create a book in 8 to 10 hours? That book can then not only show that you're an expert in a particular area, but can also help you figure out um, how to get other people, how to get your fans to be sharing content as well. So that's kind of what we do with the AHA amplifier. Oh,
Mhm.
by the way, Felipe, I just thought I'd let you know it looks like you've got the camera focused on you because the camera's not going back and forth between you and I when we interact.
No, no, it is. It is going back and forth because I'm checking on YouTube at the same time. So um,
Perfect,
it,
because I'm normally on the other side, so I don't see this normally. So okay, this is pretty cool.
okay, no problem. The thing is that there is a trick, and also for people that are using Hangout, there is a trick that sometimes if you click on your own image or the image of the other person, you will have it like frozen in your screen, so it will be always the same. So if on the down, if you click now on yours, it will appear yours and it will not leave from yours. So but I'm seeing mine and back and forth. That's why I checked YouTube at the same time, so
Perfect.
I'm seeing
Very
it on YouTube. That's why I from time to time I look to the side. It's not because I'm like bored or not hearing you, it's because I'm checking the image, because
I
this
have
is
to say that my first hangout, I've got a show called Thought Leader Life. We've done 105 episodes. My first hangout, I actually was doing it at the same time, but I made it live so that when I checked, all of a sudden there was a 10-second echo going back and forth, and I had so many tabs open, I couldn't figure out which tab to close. And it was like a 1 minute period where I was panicked. Fortunately, I had a co-host with me to help. But anyhow,
uh,
glad you figured that out.
no, it's good because we are always learning, and with technology we have to be humble to understand that there is always something that we don't know. So exchanging views, exchanging knowledge is one of the main points, and that's why we are talking about your project and the aha moments and the aha amplifier. And one of the things that is interesting in that you are working is that something that I work with my students, and some of the students and former students of mine will see this hangout, and I'm always telling them in my classes that they need to start to be experts when they are doing their own learning experience during the executive master. And this seems a bit strange because normally you had this process that you would study and then you would get some experience and then you might be an expert. But nowadays it's all about the content that you create. So if you are studying, you are researching, you are getting more knowledge, and you can actually share that knowledge that you are getting at the same time. So it is, can you go a little bit through the process? So imagine that, for instance, I'm doing this kind of learning experience. I'm doing a master. I'm doing a postgraduate course. I'm doing some PhD. Um, how can I basically use your platform in order to create content that I can disseminate at the same time, be considered as an expert because I'm using your platform and the content is being disseminated. Can you walk us through this process?
Absolutely. So what's interesting is I have three axioms. So let me give you my three axioms, and then we'll walk through the process. One, we live in an attention span where 7 seconds is about all you get. So a 7-second attention span economy, whether it's a Vine or a tweet, that's all you get before somebody makes a decision if they want to think about you more. Second thing, which is interesting, is that 80% of what you share should be somebody else's content. And I'm not talking about just purely aggregating other people's content, although that's not a bad way of doing it. I'm thinking about curating other people's content. So sharing good quality content from other people. This is regardless of whether or not you're starting out where it might be more of 90 to 100%, or if you're a well recognized thought leader in your space in today's world, you should be sharing other people's content. Where do you get it from? Well, you can spend a lot of time on social media and you can figure out what you like and what you don't like. You read a lot of newsletters, you get emails coming in, you basically are curating the stuff you like. You can do that. You can also go to, and it's ahaamplifier.com. Sign up, either sign up for an account. You could use username, password to create a new one. You could use your social media, or you could sign in as a guest. And if you sign up as an account, you now have access to 26,000, I call them AHA messages, 26,000 Twitter sized quotes that you can now share on social media. So if you want content to share immediately, you can do that. Now, let's talk about if you're in a classroom, what does that mean? We actually have a very cool scholarship program for both teachers and students in the classroom. So if you go to ahaamplifier.com and you start sharing a couple quotes, what you're doing is you're seeing a particular quote and you're sharing it on social media, right? So you see something you like and you click on a button and you share it on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Plus. Now,
So
it's
that
interesting.
that but sorry to interrupt. The sharing,
Please.
you do it directly from the platform, so you don't have to do like
Yes,
copy paste and things like that. You have like a button, and you can share it in several social networks. Correct?
absolutely. So if you find
Which are the ones that are available? Sorry to interrupt
oh,
again.
Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google Plus.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So, what's fascinating to me is, Philippe, when you actually have your book, um, then you can tell your students to share your book. Or what's really important is, and this is what I really like. We had a professor who was teaching social media in the Philippines. She worked with her students to create an AHA book, and all 72 students are listed as contributors of her book. So think about this is the ability to actually get your class together, to be able to pull content, to be able to curate the content. So, a little bit of copy edit, a little bit of content edit, make sure it's all in right context, to be able to put together and then list the students. And this was, I think, done last year. So I heard from her recently that a number of her students got jobs solely based on the fact that they were a contributor to a social media enabled AHA book, which is super cool. So I'm happy to, if you want, I'm happy to share with you that. But before we do, to answer your question directly, if you're in the classroom and you're learning, the tails have tipped, or the scales have tipped a little bit. It is no longer the professor who is the absolute person who knows everything. They know everything in terms of your grade, but they're no longer the person who knows everything. Teaching well in today's society is getting the students to come up and show their expertise. There are things that as students that easily and certainly do need to get shared. Imagine getting a homework assignment to do a project where you go out and you interview, whether you're directly interviewing or polling questions on social media, a number of experts in a particular area. You then curate those experts and deliver your result in an AHA book. How cool would that be? And what would your teacher say in terms of that as an end result? Because you're not only sharing something for the classroom, but you're actually sharing something that you could then revisit and continues to be used And that book I mentioned, our most highly shared book, is the one where we've got 72 contributors who had shared content for it.
The thing is that more and more you as a student are evaluated by the market, by the portfolio that you generate, and not for the grades. It's something that I try to explain as much as possible to my students, is that the grade nowadays is not as important as it was before. Because when you are in the job market, really the A plus, B plus, whatever, is not important. So much important as, can you show me what you are able to do? Can you show me what you did that had an impact? And one of the things that also universities have to understand is that the, the content that they create is no longer only for internal purposes, or even worse, for the shelves. So it
Right.
should be something that should have an impact in society, because it is a waste of resources to create so much content in only to put it in shelves. It's really, really, absolutely crazy. But
Well,
basically,
Philip, I heard a futurist speak the other day to 2,000 people, and he stood up there and he said something that truly resonated with me, and that was, and this is now talking about the U.S., but I'm sure it's no different in the rest of the world. We do a great job as academics, both in high school and college, of preparing our students to enter the workforce as a 1950s employee.
yep.
So what you're talking about here is something different. Unfortunately, many companies still look at grades and being able to do well there. But what's more relevant when you're looking for a job is, how have you been able to channel other people's content? How have you been able to curate other people's content? How have you been able to? What's more, the most important thing to learn today is how to ask the right question, because the answer shouldn't necessarily be stored here and memorized. The answer is somewhere on Google or somewhere else where you're actually asking the right question to be able to generate the right response. That's what the AHA amplifier is about, is being able to allow you to pull together, whether it's a series of 140 questions or 140 thought provoking pieces of content that, when shared individually by itself, causes the person to react. React could be they hate it, they love it, they share it, whatever it is. But that's what we're talking about. Now, instead of creating a book, when you read a book, you look at the shelf, and I've got all these books I'm reading. You look at the shelf, and whether the book takes you a week or a month, or sometimes, if it's pleasure, it takes you a couple months. And when you look back a month or two later, what do you remember? One, two, or 3 points.
Hmm.
So the AHA amplifier has 140 Twitter-sized quotes. You could take 25 years of experience. You could take 8 hours to write it, but now you're taking 15 minutes to read it. And at the end of reading a 15-minute book, if you now remember one, two, or 3 points, isn't that the same as spending months reading a book? I'd say
So
yes.
you are creating also a new model of dissemination, of content dissemination, because basically, one you were talking about the 7 seconds, and we can do can we say 7 seconds, more or less 140 characters, that basically are is connected with another thing that comes from journalism, that is title and lead. And so that's why when you are interested in the title and the lead of a news, you will go further on more information. But basically, you have to pick that person in those 7 seconds that are reading those 140 characters. So 7 seconds and 140 characters. Do you agree with this?
Uh, Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'll do a quick screen share.
Yeah, please.
Um, and I'll just show I'll show the book that I had talked about before. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, yes, perfectly.
So if you go to ahaamplifier.com and you could do a search on social media works for Filipino students, what's really interesting here, what you're looking at is you're actually looking at 3 pages of a book, right? So think of this, page 67, 68, 69. Now, what's really cool is all I did is click on the book to get here. It remembers what page I'm in. So I'm reading 40 or 50 books at the same time. It remembers the page I'm on. Here's the cool part, Felipe. This is the super cool part. Take a look at the book description. These are the names and Twitter handles of the students. I don't know why this one doesn't have a Twitter handle. That's interesting. So, how could you go through a social media course and not have a Twitter handle? Okay, I bet you they didn't do well. So, here are the names of the students, and here are the number of shares um, that went through the course and created it. And now, when I'm looking at a particular page, social media has this is the ha message, right? Social media has now become the air we breathe. One can't live without it. I would absolutely agree with it. The hashtag that's used is this one, so PH students. So the teacher at the time it was shared was monitoring the hashtag so that she could then respond appropriately. And if you want to share on Google Plus, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter, we'll do Twitter because it's easy to put your arms around. I click on tweet. I now click on the tweet button, and now I've shared that. So you can now find books, and the book, the Aha Amplifier itself looks like, and I'll just show you, it looks like a bookstore. You could find books that you like by searching on them or playing. We did one of the things we did recently. Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, very well known,
Mhm.
or The Art of War, Sun Tzu. If you want to quote The Art of War in a presentation you're giving, I've got a. You don't have to read it and find the quotes you like. I got 140 of the best quotes. You could choose which ones you like. Right. So this is the Aha amplifier. What's interesting, and let me go back to my let me go
And
back to my
who did that work of selecting those best quotes from those two books, for instance?
ah. So so by the way, I'm always welcome to if anyone else wants to take public domain information and create their own book and get their name associated with it. I'm absolutely open to the idea. One of the things I realized is that not everyone knew how to write an aha message. We got 26,000 of them. So I've created a school for writers. And when we hire writers, we put them through school. And so I've got a series of ghostwriters that go ahead and write the aha messages. And so that's what they've done.
Hmm. Okay. Um, One thing that because you are working in this area, what do you think is the future of paperback books?
Paperback books don't go away. Um, the as a matter of fact, what's really interesting is there's now a resurgence of paper. And one of the things that we're doing, and these are for thought leaders and corporations that want to quickly create a brand. So normally in the old days, 5, 10 years ago, being old days or beyond, there were these things called publishers, the big branded publishers. And if you got lucky enough to be chosen to be the author, you were then the thought leader of the space. You'd spend 1,000 hours writing your book. It would take 1 to 2 years, but then you would ride the coattails of your book, sometimes for a couple years, sometimes for life. Right? You still got Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore is still one of those books that he's written for life. Now, imagine you write an aha book. It takes 8 to 10 hours. You've packed your 25 years of experience, or if you're a student, you've crowdsourced the content from others. You now have a social media enabled ebook where you get your fans to be able to share content. What we also do, and I'm going to show you, is we also can put it into a physical book. Right.
Hmm.
So now we've got this book from Alex Mendozian, one of the top internet marketers in the world. And the book itself looks like this, right? I got the right run. So aha messages on the inside. When we get to certain chapters, we may have section summaries. And for Alex, we not only did a paperback book, which is kind of cool, we also did a hardcover book, right? I mean, I love the hardcover. Look how beautiful this is, and look how nice the spine is.
Hmm.
Can you see? Yeah, you guys can see that. So what's fascinating is instead of the 1,000 hours or a couple hundred hours if you're gonna self publish, You can now do an AHA book where you get your fans to share content and then have it created into a physical format, because there is no better business card when you're meeting somebody than to actually give them your book. And so, anyhow, happy to talk more. So, I
And
think,
also you can it's easier to sign books if they are paperback.
well, one of the techniques of having I did a book on called 42 Rules for Driving Success with Your Book, and one of the techniques is the signature, right? Because when you're in front of an audience and you're speaking, or even if you've written a book and you're giving it to your professor, you now have a great opportunity. You could just sign the book. Okay, that's one thing. Or you could now inscribe a very interesting thing. Great meeting you. You're an amazing professor. I'm looking forward to learning from you. Or I liked learning this lesson, looking forward to more. And then sign your name. And all of a sudden, you've given something that's so personal, they'll remember you. And that's one of the techniques is being able to autograph a physical book. Yeah, it's harder to autograph your Kindle book.
So so in a way, you are not killing the paper book. Actually, you are giving a new format, uh, like a kind of 21st century Reader's Digest format, because
Yeah.
it is much more concise, and it will. So what are the for who is publishing besides exposing themselves, their brand, uh, what is how the platform works in terms of dissemination of that content? What are the advantages?
Oh, in today's world, uh, the what's changed is the concept of a salesperson, right? Because we now no longer trust salespeople. We no longer call salespeople to learn information. Typically, in any business, B2C or B2B, somewhere between stats I've seen between 60 to 90% of the research we do online, and we do by talking to friends before we actually look at the company and their website. So, what's fascinating is we learn from talking to our friends. If there's a product, service, activity they like, if there's something you need to do, something you need to buy, you're going to talk to your friends and say, "Hey, what do you think about that?" Well, if your friends are already sharing content because they've seen something, they've liked it, it's already available in social media, or let's say you and I continue to build our relationship, the next time you say something about a social media tool, I'm going to look at it. I'm not going to think twice. If you're going to say, if you say, "Hey, try this thing for 30 days," I would do it immediately because it's you,
Hmm.
right? So what's fascinating is companies now have the opportunity to be able to share good, compelling content with a link inside the AHA message, where that link is actually going to drive action. So your call to action is now available in your 7-second soundbite. So you got 140 characters that also include a small URL that points to YouTube video, website, your call to action, the ability to download something where you then are entered into the top of the funnel for a corporation. So the answer is, who's using it? Anyone who wants to take advantage of the fact that we now listen to our friends, and our friends are talking on social media. And so now our friends are also looking for content to share. So if we can actually create good, compelling content that our friends share that they get a good reaction on, how many times do you? Here's a great question: when if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around, did it really fall? If you send a tweet, nobody responds. Did you really tweet? So what's really fascinating is if you have an AHA book and you share content and you hear back from the author and you hear back from the author's fans in their community, how does that make you feel? And the answer is that makes you feel good, and that's the type of social interaction that a tool like the AHA amplifier actually drives.
And how about the quality? How you make sure that there is quality? Because one of the things that publishers, let's say the established publishers, will say, well, okay, but we are also the guardians of quality. How you see that?
So for good or for bad, we've taken on that role at the moment as well. And that is, so all 26,000 AHA messages have had both a content edit and a copy edit from us. And so, in order to submit a book, if you go to the AHA Amplifier, typically in the upper right hand side, there's a button that says "Become an Author." You click on the button, you get brought to a page. It has a video on what to do and why. But then there's a button that says "Start Writing." When you go to start writing, there's a 7-step process. Step one is we have a Word document with 4 questions. What's the title? What's your name? What's the paragraph summary of the book? Step 2 is to read a single page PDF of what creates a good quality AHA message. So typically what happens is in step number 2 is we encourage you to create something that's compelling. In step 3, can't remember if it's 3 or 4, but 3 or 4, it's we've got a spreadsheet where you put your content in. When you share your AHA messages and you share your Word document of what your book is about, if there's a huge disparity, we'll let you know. If your messages really suck, we'll let you know. We'll try to be polite about it, right? So one of the things that typically happens is when people write a book, they want to write a contiguous book from beginning to end. They want to say that, hey, you got to read 1 to be able to read 2 and 3 and 4, and you don't understand 140 unless you read number 1. That's not what an AHA book is about. An AHA book is having a series of standalone AHA messages. So oftentimes what people do is they'll say, here are the top 5, here's the top 1 thing, here's the top 2 thing, here's the top 3 thing, to do X. And in our Word document, that 1 page, how to write an AHA message, what we actually suggest there, that's perfectly fine to have a list of your top 5 things to be a better person or to lose weight or to be able to sell more business. But if you do that, what you want to do is you want to say top 1 of 5, top 2 or 5, top 3 or 5 at the beginning of your AHA message. Because
Mhm.
if you actually read top 4 of 5, your AHA message, and you liked it, you're going to now look for 1, 2, 3, and 5, right? So that's certainly standalone, and it's actually going to encourage more action. So to answer your
Is
question,
there a
curating is
community associated to the AHA amplifier?
It is so the different social media platforms do it a different way. Um, in uh, in Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google Plus, we actually have a link back to the AHA book. In Twitter, because the character count is so short and we don't have the status yet of a Hootsuite, it's standalone, and so you don't really have that same link back to the AHA amplifier.
Mhm. And last question, because we are reaching the end of our time. Images, videos, multimedia. How can connect in terms of the aha moment? How can I use it using the aha amplifier platform?
Yeah, so what we haven't done is we don't actually have the images that are stored inside the AHA amplifier. What we can do and what we recommend, and so we did this with American author who's written 30 books, very successful, Catherine Ryan Hyde. She wanted to give a gift back to her fans, so she created a calendar. And so instead of 140 quotes to make her book, she created a book of 365 quotes. Every one of her quotes has a link to Pinterest that has a picture she's taken. So whenever any of her fans share her quote, so it has an aha quote, has a message that's really cool, and a link. So when they share her quote, the images actually show up. So you can include a Bitly, or we use aha.pub as our short URL. You can include a short URL to any image or video or website. So if you want to integrate the multimedia, it's very easy to do. You lose in Twitter space, you lose 20 characters because the URL is considered 20 characters long. So you just need to write more concisely.
Really, to finish off, can you elaborate in one success case of author of a creator of a book in your platform?
Oh,
Some
sure. There are a gazillion. My favorite, and this is going to the skeptical audience. My favorite was I was standing in front of a group of consultants, just talking about the AHA amplifier, and I said, you could write a book in a weekend, right? And and there was somebody who's a PhD. She looked at me and she said, "I will take up that challenge." I go, "Great." And I said, "If you actually finish the book in the next 24 hours, I'll make it free." So she goes, "Great." So she actually sat down. She looked at all her presentations. She spent 8 hours. She wrote her AHA book. Because I wanted to make a story, I actually then had our team create the cover, do the copy edit, do the content edit, and load it in the next 24 hours. So before the weekend was over, she wrote and we published her AHA book. She picked up her first client from the book 10 days afterwards. Now, in this particular
What
case,
was
this is
the topic? Do you recollect what was the topic
it
of
was
the book?
Kevin. If you want to search, let me look and see, make sure I get it right. It was Kevin Kreitman. I'm going to search on Kevin's name just to make sure I get her book title properly. So I'm going just for those on the side. I went into the AHA amplifier. I typed in the word Kevin. Her book is called Kevin Kreitman on Organizational Change. So it's 140 Twitter-sized quotes on how organizations should change, should transform, should do things different. And it's really funny when I opened up her book. I haven't looked at this in at least 6 months, but apparently I was on page 130. Right. So when I'm looking at these AHA messages, they're powerful. They're powerful messages, and I enjoy reading it. And thanks for the reminder. I'll actually go and share some of her quotes after this.
So, Mitchell, we have reached the 30 minutes that we have agreed. Actually, we went a little bit over it because it was a very, very nice conversation. Mitchell, thank you very much for sharing with us from San Francisco um, this magnificent project, and clearly a new way of disseminating content, but also a new way to give the floor to people that wouldn't have the possibility of disseminating their own knowledge, their own uh, mashup of content to the world. So, Mitchell, thank you very much for sharing your time and knowledge with all of us.
My pleasure. And if any of your students are watching this, they should be encouraging you to do a class project of pulling together an AHA book because we've got a scholarship program, and I'm looking forward to doing that with you. Anyhow,
Thank you.
AHAamplifier.com, guys. Look forward to seeing you online.
It will
Thank you.
happen. It will happen. Thank
Awesome.
you.
My pleasure. Good to talk with you.
Bye bye.
Bye.